Hello, welcome to Deliverable 5. In this set of tutorial videos, we are going to be adding a lot of our key site features, such as the sidewalk, the concrete pad, and the pond. In addition, we will be spending most of this deliverable focusing on site grading and volume analysis. This deliverable is made up of a lot of small parts, but no part should take very long. Besides the initial feature line work that we'll do in the next video. That's the only part that might take a little bit of time, but otherwise this should be pretty smooth and lots of little parts, so make sure you're doing them all in order, but nothing too bad. So just to give you a quick overview, this first video we're going to just outline our features. In the next set of videos we'll do feature lines, so we'll convert all of our objects that we made into feature lines, and feature lines are just a way of doing 3D representations of your objects instead of just 2D. After we do that, we will then actually do our grading for our site using the grading tool, and from there we will create grading surfaces. Then we will make cut and fill profiles and volume surfaces, and lastly, just for fun, I'll show you kind of an earthwork plan production that Civil 3D can do. So you'll make a pretty cool sheet from that, even though to us at least it doesn't mean a whole lot. That's totally okay though. So we're gonna get started here. You can see I'm on a new file, 5A. This is a copy of my file 2B, I believe. Or you can use your 3A. You might have already outlined some of your features in Deliverable 3 in Civil 3D, and if you did, that's great. You could build off of that if you want to. But I'm copying my 2B file, so this is working on the survey site. This is the part of OHIL where you actually went out and collected all of this data. So your boundaries and your contours won't match up with mine exactly, and that's okay. Some of you might also have much more extensive legends than I do, and that's also okay. So we are going to start by modeling the sidewalk, the concrete pad, and the pond. And so those are the three things we're going to be doing at first. I'm going to start with the concrete pad. I think that makes the most sense to start with. Note that you should have your plan from Deliverable 3. That's a great starting point. If you're looking at that and you're going through this and you think you need to redo it or change it, that's okay. But that is where you should be starting in terms of your design here. So I'm going to start with my concrete pad. I'm going to make it a rectangle. You need to make this exactly 40 feet by 70 feet, no more, no less. So make sure you do that exactly. I recommend clicking somewhere and specifying you want it to be 40 feet and then hit tab. Then you can specify the other dimension. So I'm going to type 70, and you can see if I hit tab again, there's my rectangle, 40 by 70. And now I'm going to just hit enter, and my rectangle has been created. I'm going to select my rectangle and right click it, and I'm going to make sure it's above everything so it doesn't get hidden by my site. And now I need to move this to place it where I want it to be. So I'm going to right click and use the move tool. I know I'm planning for mine to be pretty close to the tree line here. And then I'm going to use the rotate tool and rotate mine, and then move it again. So just get this in your place, wherever you've designed it to be, by using these basic tools that we've gone over a couple of times now. And that's your concrete pad. You can, if you want to, also use some of these settings to change your concrete pad visualization or placement. So that is an option for you as well. But we're going to be converting this from a polyline to a feature line, which is just a different type of line object in Civil 3D in the next video. So I wouldn't bother doing too much with it right now. From here, I am going to make my sidewalk. Now I know my sidewalk needs to connect to the existing sidewalk over by Shannon and connect to my concrete pad, and Deliverable 3 made me really look at grading, so I have a proposed idea for how to make my sidewalk. Now, I'm going to do this using a 2D polyline. I'm also going to keep my object snapping off, otherwise it's going to probably mess up a lot of my design. And this is going to be a little bit interesting the way I do this. I want my sidewalk to be of a constant width, for example, 6 feet. So I could go here and actually, use my polylines and make my whole object and then make sure it's exactly 6 feet wide, but that's really hard to do. So instead of doing that, I am going to make my sidewalk center line. So if I'm making my sidewalk 6 feet wide, I'm going to make the line that's 3 feet, so right in the center of it. And from there, we're going to use a different tool to kind of offset that, and it'll make our sidewalk width automatically. So I'm going to start. I'm going to make sure that my object snapping is on. I know my design starts right after the light pole, so I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to start drawing my sidewalk. This is also a great time to use, instead of just using lines, using arcs. If you need to make a smooth adjustment, I would recommend doing that. So I might actually go with that instead. So again, turning off my object snapping. Making everything an arc for me. From here, I'm going to go to a line. And then back to an arc. And I'm just using the shortcuts. If you see here, whatever the letters are in blue and capitalized, if you just type those in, this Civil 3D recognizes that as a shortcut. So I can just type an L and it knows that that's a line. And I'm going to turn my object snapping back on because I want this to be perpendicular with my concrete pad. And so if I actually go to these snap settings, I can unselect all of them and only turn on perpendicular, so that way I know that I'm getting exactly what I want. So perpendicular would be here, but I can't. So I could do that, but that looks a little bit funky with my arc. So I'll just start with that and see what I can change here. So this looks a little bit funky, so I'm just going to try to smooth this out a little bit. This is definitely, I think, the worst part. This arc right here. So that looks a little bit better, but not quite exactly where I want it to be. The transitions between the arcs and the lines seem to be pretty jagged, so I might actually just redo this really quickly. And this is going to take a little bit of trial and error, so don't be frustrated if you don't get it on your first go. That's totally okay. Let me turn on some of these snap settings again. And I might just do this all as an arc. Nope, I don't like that. Never mind. But play around with those settings. You can definitely get better than what I just did. Line, now arcs, pretty shallow. I'm gonna zoom in here so I can see exactly what angle I'm getting here. And then turn on my object snap settings again, but just the perpendicular, so I can get a nice 90-degree bend. You don't have to do this if you don't want it to be perpendicular, right? That's totally up to your design. I'm gonna enter. Again, not the smoothest here, and I can go back in and try to refine this a little bit, but I think I am happy enough with where this is. Turn off the object snapping. I'm happy enough with where this is. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to move on so you can see how to actually make the offset. So from here, I'm going to actually take this and I am going to make this polyline into this offset tool here. So if I click on this, I can specify that I want the offset distance to be 3 feet. and I can specify a point to offset it on. So I'm going to select multiple, and I want it to offset on the left side and on the right side. So now if I hit escape, you can see it has made polylines on both sides that are perfectly offset by 3 feet on each side. So that means I have a 6 foot wide sidewalk here, and I didn't have to go through and make sure that it's 6 feet everywhere, which is especially helpful for all the curves. You do have to do some cleanup work at the ends though, right? Things don't match up perfectly, and that is okay. So I'm gonna come over here, turn on my object snapping again, turn all my settings on, and get it to line up exactly with the sidewalk that exists currently. And do the same thing on this side. Make sure that these are connected and snapped. And now I can go back and delete this center line. I don't need it anymore. You're welcome to keep it though, if you want to. And now I'm just going to close off my offsets by using the polyline tool and kind of connecting them together while following all of the existing line work that exists. So I did that on this side. I'm going to do it again on the other end of the sidewalk. And now that I've done that, assuming that there's no gaps here and that all the lines are touching, I can select them all and use the join command to make them all one object. So if I select it all, you can see that I'm now selecting the entire polyline. Looks good to me. And so that is my sidewalk. I'm going to save here now. From here, I'm going to work on my pond. My pond has to be at least 900 square feet. So 900 square feet, the easiest way to visualize that is a 30 by 30 foot square. So if I just use the rectangle tool here and click somewhere, I know my detention pond is going to be around here. I'm going to do 30, tab, 30, enter. This is 900 square feet. It's really not that big given the size of the site. So I also know I don't want my pond to just be a square. I don't think that's very interesting. So I'm going to go back up here and use the polyline tool. And I'm going to draw around this to make sure that I am at least 900 square feet. So I'm going to start in the upper left corner, sorry. I'm going to be using the arc tool for this, but you're welcome to use whatever you would like. I don't quite like this. Let's see what else I can do. I'm just playing around with these tools as well. Can I do a 2-point arc like that? That looks pretty good to me as a starting shape. So I'll do this, perhaps. And I know I want a sort of pool, kidney bean-ish shape here. So really just playing around with arcs to see what shape I can get here. I could just close it now, and I might actually do that. I'm going to type C to close. CL to close, sorry. And if I click on my polyline now, I can go into the properties tab and see that my area is 2,500 square feet, which is well above the required 900. So I like the shape. I will delete this. This is my pond. I'm going to move it again to be exactly where I want it to be. So I want my pond to be here. I want to keep this tree here, I think. So I'm going to move it a little bit more this way. Some of the pipe work here might need to get changed, but that's not within the scope of this project, so that is okay. So I'm going to put my pond here, and then I am going to rotate it. And then move it one more time. So if you've been following along and doing this with me, you should now have on your site your pond, your concrete pad, and your sidewalk all modeled in 2D. And in the next video, we'll go over how to turn these into 3D objects with elevation. You might look at a polyline and say that you can assign an elevation, and this is true, but that's a constant elevation. And we want to be able to change the elevation everywhere. You know, for the sidewalk, for example, the elevation will not be constant. So that's going to be coming up in the next video.